China has constructed the world's most sophisticated system of internet content.
中国工信部宣布全面清理虚拟私人网络 VPN.
A virtual private network.
VPNs are becoming increasingly popular in the country.
Critics say Apple is enabling China's censorship of the internet.
When you talk to journalists in Uganda about the challenges of the work they do, they will tell you about political intimidation, harassment, even bogus criminal charges. However, over the past few years, some things have changed. And now the people who reporters in Uganda tend to fear the most wear police uniforms. President Yoweri Museveni has held power for 31 years now. In his early days in office, he oversaw the opening up of the country's media space, the arrival of many new news outlets, both broadcast and print. However, the 72-year-old has clearly grown less tolerant of a free press. His government has passed some problematic laws that have had a chilling effect on reporting. The Listening Post's Nick Muirhead now from Kampala on the way those laws are enforced when journalism in Uganda crosses paths with policing.
On the surface, the media in Uganda looks vibrant. Dozens of papers populate the newsstands. There are numerous news channels on TV and some 240 radio stations on the dial. Ugandans can also get online with relative ease. However, speak to journalists here and many will tell you that reporting the news can be risky and a police presence is often not a reassurance, but a threat.
Journalists have been... The female police officers beat us, while the male officers enjoyed fondling our breasts.
This policewoman charged against a female journalist while everyone looked on.
I went to see Andrew Lwanga, a journalist who was assaulted by a senior policeman while covering a protest in 2015, an attack he says has left him with permanent injuries. On January 12, 2015, you went out to cover a group of young Ugandans who were protesting against unemployment in the country. What happened next?
2 leaders of the youth were arrested. I happened to be behind. I was filming the arrest. He saw me. He got his cable. Hit me first. He hit me the second time. The third came in. I put the camera. He hit it. It was so strong, it broke the LCD. The camera, it was in parts. So he hit me, then I blacked out.
Once attacked, of course, was rushed to hospital. Though he was briefly arrested by the police and they wanted to put him in the cells in that state of health, in very deteriorating state. We went to the hospital to ask the medical team at the hospital, our national referral hospital, to give due attention to this guy. But then the guy was discharged and in a very pathetic health state. And the next day when he came over to the police to record a statement, he collapsed.
I was admitted in Zambia hospital, but I woke up after 3 or 4 days. On waking up on the 4th day, I could not feel myself. I could not feel from the waist up to the legs. I could not stand. I was in Zambia for about 27 days.
The day after the assault, a group of Ugandan journalists and media activists organized a protest march. As they neared police headquarters in central Kampala, they were blocked by police, pepper sprayed and arrested. Overwhelming evidence of the assault on Lwanga by District Police Commander Jerome Masije got him suspended and charged. 2 years later, in a case fraught with delays, irregularities and claims of witness intimidation, Masije was found guilty of assault. He was dismissed from the force and fined a nominal $1,400. Lwanga says that his medical bills have come in at around $60,000. We spoke with ASAN KASINGYE, the Assistant Inspector General of Police. He says that his force has taken the appropriate action, even if the courts have not.
Let's contextualize this very well. This officer was arrested by the police. The DPP advised the police on which charges to charge him, and he was taken to courts. So if courts of law gave a punishment that, in public opinion, it's not what he could have done, we have nothing to do about that. That was not the police. And we should not be judged for what courts of law, in their wisdom, did. But for us, we said, even if courts of law have made this kind of judgment, this officer cannot work in the police.
We wanted a message go out to the other police officers, security agents, who have since made it a habit to descend onto journalists, beat them, block them from accessing news. We wanted to just make that point very strong. We didn't achieve that.
And it's not the only case. Why we are referring to it is because he was courageous enough to go to court. But there are so many journalists that have been beaten out of police brutality, beating, kicking. And the police is not just beating journalists. They are beating citizens.
Mwisije is one of the only police officers to have been convicted of assaulting a journalist, despite the alarming frequency with which it happens. According to a report released by the Human Rights Network for Journalists in Uganda, the HRNJU, the security forces, especially the police, are the worst offenders against media freedoms. Of the 135 violations against journalists last year, 83 were committed by the Ugandan police. That's more than 60%. The police have consistently been the worst perpetrators of violence against the media in Uganda. What the HRNJU's findings shows that over the past 4 years there's been a spike in police aggression, and that should come as no surprise because exactly 4 years ago a controversial new law was passed called the Public Order Management Act that many here warned would put the opposition, activists, protesters and journalists on a collision course with the authorities. The roots of the Public Order Management Act, or POMA, can be traced back to 2011. As the Arab Spring unfolded with uprisings across the Middle East and North Africa, authorities in Kampala made moves to bolster legislation that would ostensibly help them maintain order. In practice, it would seem they were creating a legal framework to crack down on dissent. Under POMA, if 5 or more Ugandans want to form any kind of political assembly, then they need police permission to do so, which opposition members will tell you is hard to come by. As a consequence, police are breaking up more and more gatherings of a political nature, like a handful of Ugandan youths protesting against unemployment. And when journalists turn up to cover the story, then all too often, and through no choice of their own, they become part of the story.
We know the spirit behind the particular law was to phase out critical voices, was to deny space to the opposition and all critical minds. Here in Uganda, the media is the last man standing to give a platform to those that are not allowed to assemble, to associate and to express themselves through public forums and meetings, which media now is being arm-twisted to discuss things in a particular way that it tends to be friendly to the regime.
They've always stopped opposition, they've always beaten media, they've always beaten people, citizens who are standing up for their rights, but they had no legal basis. So the Public Order Management Act was passed to create a basis for the bad acts of government. But also it's important to underscore the fact that POMA is being implemented alongside other draconian laws. The Communications Act, the Media Freedoms Act, the Cyber Crimes Act. So it is not just POMA that is used.
The media, journalists, have already determined, for example, if it is a political contestation, they are already biased. You can tell whether it is at a rally, whether it is by writing, whether it is expressing a point on TV. And once you have, or the police think that you are somebody from that kind of perspective, there is going to be a problem.
That a perceived media bias forms any kind of justification for police brutality is the problem. And it demonstrates that too many uniforms in Uganda are there to serve those in power and not the people. And here is just one outcome. Andrew Lwanga is now forced to live at home with his retired mother. The journalist struggles to make ends meet and is unlikely to work in the field, if not the profession, ever again. The policeman who assaulted him has walked free.